This is Simon. Simon is one of the many people who didn't get their hands on the cult hit Gloomhaven. He now spends most of his days looking for a copy.
I read somewhere in physics that it says that if you keep looking for something long enough, then you'll eventually just find it. So I keep looking for it everywhere. I keep looking in bins, I keep looking in shops, I keep looking in people's backyards. Everywhere, really.
Simon sacrificed a lot for his search, his family and his job taking a back seat to fulfill his desire. Not everyone is as understanding towards his plight.
My sister came to visit me last week and her daughter said to me, "Oh, Gina, I still have a copy of Gloomhaven. My brute's level 4 now."
Was that hard for you to hear?
Well, yeah, I guess it, it made me feel less of a person, really.
Do you still talk to your sister?
No, not anymore.
Simon gets up at 9 a.m. every day and sets off on his search for the elusive game. He used to work as a milk carton manufacturer, but now his fortunes have shifted.
I quit my job last week.
How did that happen?
Well, I haven't really clocked in since late February.
Did you get fired?
Well, no, it's not like that. You see, there's other factors.
You got fired, didn't you, Simon?
Yeah.
You know, you can pick up a copy of the reprint of Gloomhaven from next week. You can pick it up for like £100.
Join us next week as we meet Terry, a woman who uprooted her family to Poland just so the postal services deliver her copy of First Martians one day earlier.
Not that it matters, but Gloomhaven currently sits as number 11 on Board Game Geek's top 100 games of all time. Not that it matters, but almost every major reviewer has reviewed this game incredibly positively. And not that it matters, but this is probably one of the most content-rich games ever made. And you know why it doesn't matter? Well, because none of that makes a good game. So, is Gloomhaven any good?
Well, we can't really answer that. We recently had a Kickstarter where one of the rewards was an adventure for Gloomhaven that we had helped to design. Plus, Isaac Childress, the designer of Gloomhaven, was really promoting us, which directly added to our success. So we are biased.
Heavily biased.
So we can't say whether we liked the game and we can't say whether it was really any good, but we can discuss certain aspects of it. Take everything with a pinch of salt because once again, we are biased.
Gloomhaven is a dungeon crawler, but that on its own makes it about as special as a AA battery or a pair of pliers. To say that there's a few dungeon crawlers out there would be more than an understatement. So what's so special here? Well, first of all, it's voluptuous, it's gargantuan, it'd be large, yo. In fact, there are 95 scenarios in the game, each taking you anywhere from 90 minutes to 5 hours to complete. But if that wasn't enough, Gloomhaven is a legacy game, meaning you'll put stickers on the board to unlock new scenarios, tear up cards, unlock new content and progress through a living campaign. Finally, it's a dungeon crawler that doesn't have a single dice, yet still features a much more interesting luck-based mechanism.
When you start your campaign, you'll get to pick one of the 6 character types, but they're not just your standard serving of fantasy tropes, like elves or dwarves or Italians. Instead, you'll get to take on the role of things like psychic rats or giant rock guys with glowing chest cavities. And although they do fit the standard archetypes of things like healer or tank, there is something about them that just makes a crag hut feel like a crag hut and a mind thief feel like a mind thief.
Each character gets 2 specialized decks of cards. One of them lets you decide what it is that you can actually do on any given adventure, and one of them will tell you whether you succeed at these things or not, meaning that if you do want to really hit someone with a bucket over the head, well, there's a chance that things might go drastically wrong. Each time you go on an adventure, you will take all the cards available to your character and select a number of them as indicated on your character sheet. It is kind of like customizing your character every time you set off to do a new scenario, meaning that you can bring in an entirely different tool set depending on what the job requires. Will you select cards that bolster your allies and provide healing abilities? Or maybe this time you'll bring funky spells that let you summon different creatures like swarms of rat. that are represented by these circular round tokens, which we've affectionately dubbed the Roomba, because they're round and they move on their own. It's adorable.
Every turn you'll choose which 2 cards to play, and they each have a top action and a bottom action. They will also have an initiative value, and you will have to choose which top action and which bottom action you want to resolve. Most top actions are something to do with combat and have an ability, and most bottom actions are to do with move. But the trick is you can't tell exactly what you're going to do to all the other players. So you can say, I'm going to waltzing Matilda my way over to this skeleton and whack him with my fists. But you can never say something like, I'm going to move 4 hexes and do him 4 damage. Of course, when you reveal your action, though, you may see their faces drop as they realise that you've messed up everything that they wanted to do. There is one final thing. Some of the cards have an awesome special ability, like jumping in and thrashing about and destroying all your enemies in one fell swoop. But these cards are then lost, and you can't use them again for the scenario. And in this way, the cards work as a kind of clock. Once you lose all your cards, you're out.
It's turn 2 and you're the Crackheart. You have a simple choice to make. Take all the cards you have in your hand and choose 2 of them to play. You look at the battlefield and notice a massive cluster of skeletons very far away from you, meaning that the Dirt Tornado, which is a name I used to dance under, would be the perfect spell to cast because it would target every single skeleton in that cluster. Great, except the only problem is you need to move about 4 hexes to actually get to them, which you have a rock tunnel for. Here's the problem. If you want to use the rock tunnel, you will have to lose it. Meaning, the earlier you lose cards in the game, the faster your clock dwindles, the sooner you're going to be eliminated from the adventure. On top of that, both of the initiative values on Dirt Tornado and Rock Tunnel are pretty low. 82 means pretty much you're going to go last, but you can put 41 on top when you reveal the cards, meaning that will be your initiative value, which is quite middling. Here's the thing, you have to choose these cards before you actually know when the skeletons are going to activate. Skeletons are generally about as fast as Usain Bolt, if we were thinking about the Usain Bolt from Bizarro World. But every so often, monsters have surprises for you, and they might just move before you, completely breaking up this cluster and making your attack not as effective. Finally, your allies might go before you and, well, mess up your plan by just eliminating some of the enemies that you wanted to eliminate, which isn't, of course, as bad. But you really want to consult with your allies because they can also help you out. Dirt Tornado can be enhanced if you spend nature energy, and it is entirely possible that one of your allies might cast a spell that will create nature energy that you can then use. You could ask them before you select the cards, but with so many choices going on at the same time, it's very likely you'll just forget.
Of course, this menagerie of choices will significantly prolong the game for players who are paralytically analytically persuaded, and you might not like that the game doesn't let you plan your perfect turn. But can you imagine how long each turn would take for those groups of players who were driven towards perfection, who wanted to maximise everything on each turn? It also makes the game feel more thematic, and it stops bossier players from taking over every turn and doing what they want instead of what you want.
And finally, there's this little baby with the innocuous name of Attack Modifier Deck, but I like to call it the little deck of dreams and nightmares. When you start the game, you will receive a standard issue attack modifier deck, which you will immediately start hating. Every time you attack, you will declare an attack action, and it will have an attack value, like this card has attack 4. That's what you start with, and then instead of rolling the die, all you need to do is draw the top card and reveal what's on top of it. So you might get a +1, meaning your attack now becomes a 5. Great, but for every +1 and +2 in your attack modifier deck, you have -1s, -2s, and what's worse, one card says you outright miss, but to make things a little bit more exciting, there's one card that actually doubles the attack value, making it, in this case, a whopping 8. That's great. And it rhymes, but why wouldn't you just use a normal die? Doesn't it just fulfill the exact same function? Well, no. You see, dice are modifiable, and decks of cards are. As you progress with your character, you will be able to take out some of the bad cards and add in some good stuff. And some cards will even let you do some truly amazing things, like stun your enemy in addition to the damage you've dealt. you've now incapacitated them for an entire turn. And it's totally up to you what this deck will become through the course of your adventures.
If we had to describe Gloomhaven in one word, it would be voluminous. There are 95 scenarios in this little tiny box, loads of monsters and thousands of cards. But there has to be a sacrifice somewhere. I mean, if you had a piece of toast the size of this table, just how much butter could you afford to scrape across it? And the sacrifice comes in the fact that most scenarios have one objective only. The puzzle is how to best use your skills and abilities to dispatch a particular composition of monsters. Fighting a flame and a night demon, bring something that uses light and ignores shields, and you will make short work of them. Occasionally, the game gives you an objective that is totally different, and that will be the highlight of your game.
And then there's the story. It's sparse, doled out in paragraphs, mostly at the starts and ends of every adventure to kind of set things up and then give you a lead towards the next story. But the writing really makes the world feel unique. In fact, Gloomhaven and playing Gloomhaven feels a lot like World of Warcraft. Not the World of Warcraft we know right now, but the World of Warcraft that came out in 2004. A world, big world, full of mystery that will take you months, maybe even years to explore. And you'll mostly engage with this world through fights, and then you'll wait for those tiny little revelations and flourishes to come out in the story, drip-fed to you via an intravenous solution of cardboard. That sort of game is not for everyone. But who knows, it might just be for you.
Will you play all 95 scenarios? The first two follow a linear path, but then it branches off again and again and again until you realise that it's become your own path, and this is what makes Gloomhaven feel unique. The path you follow will block some of the scenarios off, and it will make sense why they are blocked off. There is one thing for sure, Gloomhaven will become your Gloomhaven. As unforgiving and as harsh as this world is, it won't be long or difficult until you call it home.
And in between scenarios, you get to explore the world even more via city and road event cards. Each time you encounter one of these, you'll read the card and it'll say, you found a rock. It's just a rock. It's an ordinary rock. You could just walk on by and nothing bad would ever happen, presumably. Or you could pick the rock up. And what happens then? Well, you don't know. Of course, the real events in these cards are a lot more interesting rather than just stumbling onto a rock. But they are equally impenetrable in terms of the choices you have to make, and your only compass is your moral compass. And then when you do make the choice, you flip the card, you read the option associated to what it is that you chose, and then something happens. And whilst Gloomhaven is certainly not the first board game to use this choose-your-own-adventure mechanism, and on its own isn't really particularly original or inventive, but there's an added trick. And the added trick is that Gloomhaven is a legacy game. And because it's a legacy game, your choices have lasting consequences that will impact the world. Say you do pick up that rock and you flip the card over and you find out that you have accidentally unsealed a portal to an evil dimension, and there's no way of putting that rock back because it'll just go through the portal into the other dimension. And that's it. That portal to the other dimension is now there. And what's going to happen next? Well, the card will instruct you to find another card just like that in a spare deck with a specific number and shuffle it into the deck. Meaning that as the game goes on, you might encounter those consequences. Or you might not. Who knows? The world is full of mystery.
Legacy pervades everything in this game. Every time you kill a monster, it will drop a coin, but the only way to pick that coin up is by ending your move action exactly on it. Sometimes that's quite convenient, other times not so much. But you want coins because more coins equals more stuff, and that's only good because you get to play the same character in every game. There are also these treasure chest tokens, which will quite often be totally out of the way and tricky to get to. And if you don't manage to pick them up before the end of the scenario, they and their treasure will poof away into nothingness and be lost forever. At the beginning of each scenario, you will also draw one of these secret goal cards, which you can't tell anyone about. But complete it and you are one step closer to completing one of your perks and upgrading your action modifier deck. Every little decision that you make will permeate the whole of your campaign.
Finally, you have your personal secret goal. This is your character's reason for going on adventures. This is what they want to achieve with themselves. And when they are done, that's it for them. They get to retire, and you get to unlock one of 11 new characters, sealed characters, secret characters, and you don't know what's inside here, and it's exciting. Once you receive this goal, you really want to complete it because you want to find out what's in one of these. But then, after you've about played 10 games with your little man or woman, you start to become attached to them. You start to feel like, I don't know, some sort of feeling of camaraderie because you've taken them on adventures, you've customized them, you made them your own, and you made them a part of this campaign, and you won't want to let them go. But as a final hurrah, they get to become a non-player character and become a different part of this world. And that's fine, because somewhere down the line in the story, you might actually get to meet them again.
There's so much in Gloomhaven, but is there too much? How big is the rulebook, and are the rules easy to learn? None of the answers to these are good, and whilst the general rule set is clear and understandable, significantly helped by Gaming Rules' tutorial video, this game has a rule set that rivals even the crunchiest of role-playing games in its complexity. Oftentimes you'll look through the rulebook for something that you've forgotten, or for those rules exceptions or strange interactions that you've come across. But more often than not, you'll be looking at the official FAQ online that's huge, just to find out something that you thought you knew how to do.
Things are further complicated by the fact that there is no games master, no person to control all the monsters. Instead, they are controlled by an AI, a rule system that would follow itself to the T. It is often harsh and unforgiving, but sometimes circumstances will lead to an easy scenario simply because the monsters did something that can be called stupid only on the best of days. And then you're never sure whether that was their stupidity or your own stupidity, because the AI rule set is one of the most complicated rule sets I have read in any game. And oftentimes you don't know if you did something right or not.
But if things are too easy, you can crank up the difficulty, and this is where we come back to the World of Warcraft analogy. Each scenario will scale so it matches the experience of the party. And this is great because it means you're not tied to a certain gaming group. If someone new wants to come in and join your game, great, they can. Where the disadvantage is, though, is no scenario feels a lot more challenging than another one. It takes away the foreboding and the danger in certain parts of the world. In theory, a big scary dragon could be eliminated by a group of adventurers who had just finished reading First Baby Steps in Killing Skeletons.
Crumbs. Did we miss something? I'm sure we missed something.
Prosperity.
Global achievements.
Enhancing your ability cards with permanent stickers.
The list goes on.
And we could be here all day, all night, and all day again, maybe all week. But whilst we couldn't tell you our critical opinion on the game, we hope that we've shown enough of a light on many of its aspects. But let us say one final thing.
Regardless of how we feel about the game, or you feel, or anyone feels, there's something that can't be taken away from it.
There is no other game like this out there. Never has been, and probably won't be for a long time to come. Gloomhaven is unprecedented, and nobody can take that away from it. And it's not an opinion. It's just an observation. Hey!
Subscribe!
Subscribe, because, you know, we've been filming this until 12 a.m. and we are now really tired and we can't come up with anything else witty to say. You had the witticism drawn out of us, but if you want to draw more witticism, like a vampire draws, I don't even know.
Lemons from a lemon tree.
That's a very good analogy, Elaine. So if you want more of these kinds of analogies, this quality humorous content from us, subscribe to our channel.
Please.